All right, we're back for another show, the AllStar MMA Live, and we'll be recapping UFC Sao Paulo in Brazil. A card that was full of everything, right? And we'll go through all of it and talk about the heavyweight division, talk about the welterweight division, talk about hype trains and fraud checks. Like these are terminologies that these are terms that are used quite often in MMA, and I think you got all of that on this card. And then we will transition over to talking about the big announcement that was, I think, earlier today. Dana White came out in his now his new thing that he does, where he comes out and does these like breaking news announcements, and yeah, and they announced 3 title fights. So we'll get into that as well, talk about it and all the angles. You know what I mean? Because we're 3 different people, and we have 3 different brains and thoughts and perceptions. So we'll get into that. Before we get into that, please download the AllStar app. It's in the descriptions. It's free. You can make picks on UFC fights and play the leagues and play contests and all of that stuff. It's phenomenal. There has been some technical hiccups, but it's an app. It's still in development, so please ride it out and continue using it. Spec, what's the update on the league and what's going on?
So what we're gonna do, all right, just like John mentioned, there is a hiccup, but the hiccup, I believe, is in the quest of better things. The app is obviously trying to, make things better for the future and for everyone all around. So sometimes you got to take a half step back. What happened was a lot of people's accounts got reset. So if you had achieved a rank or a belt of some sort, you are now relegated back to white belt. You got to start again. Sorry for all that. In the sake of fair play and recognizing all this from all the people who care and all the people who play, I decided to postpone this month's championship so everybody can level up past white belt, so you can make all the selections, so all the experience points is available. So we'll just shift that over. But this coming weekend, the birthday weekend, 30 years deep for the UFC, I'll be giving away Tank Abbott autographed trunks of during our watch party for, always supporting the AllStar. Come on through on the X app, no longer Twitter. Right there, boom. You know what's up.
X app. That's weird to say.
I
But
know.
yeah, join the spaces with Spec and Sicko Sports. He's on there, and there's the shorts right there. Tank Abbott, UFC. Wow. So you guys go on Twitter or X, whatever you call it nowadays, and join them and just have fun watching the fights with people and talking shit, right? That's basically what you're doing.
Yeah, and you
Um,
never know who rolls through. Like last weekend, we had a reunion of legends. Chris Brennan and Enson Inoue. They were boys, haven't got to talk to each other in a long time. The power of the
wow.
internet. They got to hang out in our space and reconnect. It was a beautiful time, beautiful space, man.
It was like a live family reunion on Spaces, right? Good for you
Word.
guys. Mike, join us again. How are you feeling, man? And give everybody an update on the ankle.
Doing well, doing well. Good to hear everybody's voices. We had a fantastic UFC Sao Paulo card, and I am recovering one day at a time. The ligaments are starting to scar down. Hopefully, I'll be on the move soon, back in business, and looking forward to UFC 295. Headed into the desert for a few days and getting the mind right, getting sharp, getting ready for the fantastic title fights that are headed our way, and looking forward to breaking down the card that just took place as well. So great to hear both of your voices and happy to be here.
Phenomenal, phenomenal. Let's jump into the main event of UFC Sao Paulo. Jailton Almeida, the man that sets like every single record. I think by the time he's done with the UFC, he'll hold every record for the heavyweight division. He's on his way, man. Such an extreme talent, man. Just the way like he didn't even start off as a heavyweight. He was a light heavyweight and he moved up to heavyweight and just is slicing through the competition like hot knife on butter, man. Like I'm on the train now. I'm on the hype train of Jailton Almeida. Like he went in there and he did what we expected, right? He went in there and he grappled and he used his superior grappling abilities against Derrick Lewis. The only thing that sucked is that he wasn't able to finish Derrick Lewis. Derrick Lewis, if you've watched his previous fights, I think he's had I don't even know
Sorry.
how many he's at. I think that was his like 26th or 27th, 28th UFC fight. So he's had so much experience, right? And he has the most knockouts in UFC history. He's a talent, right? But we've seen him in the past kind of show glimpses of like, I don't want to be here anymore. I don't want to fight anymore. We've seen that, right? But
That is true.
it didn't happen in this fight. Mike, let's start with you, right? Should Jailton Almeida have had Derrick Lewis finished in that fight?
Man, it seemed like he could have. I mean, not long ago, remember Mark Hunt when he fought Derrick Lewis? How that played out, and there have been many other fights where he gets hit to the body. His body's soft, and he ends up checking out. But that did not happen last night or on Saturday. It was pretty amazing to watch that fight go all 25 minutes. I believe fight doesn't go the distance. The odds were set over at, I believe, DraftKings minus 10,000 at one point for fight doesn't go the distance. So you would have to bet $10,000 to win $100, basically. It's crazy how that worked. And it went all 5 rounds. And you said it straight, John, when you were saying that it was like a warm knife through butter. And how easy was it for him to slide right into mount position? But then once he got to mount position, he just sat there and was comfortable being in position over submission, because you could see he felt the threat of Derrick Lewis exploding out of that position. And Derrick, he pulled it off 2 or 3 times, but he wasn't able to land that shovel uppercut that he landed on Curtis Blades and other fighters. So it was an interesting bout. I understand why folks are upset because they want to see finishes, but 21 minutes of control time, that I think set a new record for the heavyweight division. So that's a statement in itself. And like you, John, I am on board the Jailton Almeida train. The thing that blew my mind this morning, I know he weighs in at around 232 or 234 pounds. Then you have Vitor Petrino. We'll talk about him in a little while, but he weighs in at 205. And today he posted on Twitter, he weighs 243 pounds. So he's actually larger and heavier than Jailton Almeida, and he cuts to 205. So it's amazing how you have Almeida competing at both light heavyweight. Now he's kicking ass up at heavyweight. So both of those fighters, very impressive.
Yes. Charisma, honor. We'll get to some of those questions in a bit. We're gonna try to focus on the main event right now of UFC Sao Paulo and Jailton Almeida. That's the man. Is he the boogeyman of the heavyweight division, J-Spec?
Boogeyman, I'm not sure, because with all this awesomeness that he's doing, and I am not a Jailton Almeida detractor, but I have to repeat what the people are saying. They're booing this performance. They're not liking this outcome by Jailton. They are calling for, man, where's the urgency? Where's the finish? I think the part that upsets fans, or at least the part that upset me, was that he never convinced me at any point throughout the fight that he was attempting to finish the fight. There was never a sequence or an effort or an all-out effort, even for like 20 seconds, where he was just like trying to finish this fight. And he did what he did to win. Now, a lot of people are not happy with that. Whatevers. There's a joke that we say the worst compliment in MMA is showing your toughness. Well, I made a second joke that followed up with that, that's saying the most control time in UFC history is got to be the second worst compliment you can have. But folks, I have to, for all that you could try to throw at Jailton Almeida and try to, be like criticism. First off, you don't got Derrick Lewis to deal with. So first, second, let's give credit to Mr. Lewis. He showed some defensive grappling capability. Now he got overexcited and got his hips too high and got rematted. Regardless, I seen a dude that baseball gripped and pivoted and like got better positions on occasion, which an old Derrick Lewis, or a previous version of Derrick Lewis, I should say, would have never done any of that stuff, dude. Like, real big ups to 2023 Derrick Lewis for not getting submitted over 25 minutes with a Jailton Almeida on your chest, on your side, on your back, pretty much the whole damn time. So there you go. That's my full perspective on that. Now, can Jailton Almeida be the truth for the division? Absolutely, dude. You said it. He's got knockout power. He can mat you. Like, let's be honest. What do you need to be a champion? You need to be able to win in every way. And I know this is not the sellable way, but you got to be able to win boring sometimes. You know what I mean? GSP had some. Randy had some. The greats have some. Spider had some. You got to be able to win in every facet. Jailton Almeida showing us he can do it.
When you look at Jailton Almeida's record, like he has 12 submission wins, right? So we could consider him a submission specialist. I don't know. It's hard to say, right? It's hard to say who's a submission specialist because there's guys that are not submission specialists, but they have a bunch of submission wins, right? But if you're getting submissions, you must be a specialist at something, right? Positions or just, a killer instinct. And Jailton Almeida, he has 12 of them, 12 submission finishes. Derrick Lewis was submitted by Daniel Cormier, who submits nobody, really. I think that's one of his only submission wins of his career. Who else did he submit in his run in the UFC, right? It's all decisions or knockouts.
We'd have to do a quick dive on that one.
Yeah, we'd have to dive in that, right? So that's kind of disappointing, right? That he's the guy that gets submissions, but he wasn't able to submit Derrick Lewis. Now, Derrick Lewis, he's the king of knockouts, of course, but he's also the king of just like getting up without any kind of like technique. He'll just get up, right? Like we've seen him do that in the past to people. And I was expecting that, but Jailton is he's phenomenal on the ground. And I think the style that he has and the cardio, the strength, the positional awareness, he exceeds so many other heavyweights. So many other heavyweights, even in the top 10 in those attributes. And I think he's going to be a problem for every single heavyweight. If they should not put him against Ciryl Gane, they should not. Because I think that's going to be a bad stylistic matchup for Ciryl Gane, right? But if they want to build Jailton Almeida, that's the fight they should make next against Ciryl Gane. What do you see, Mike, in this one? Do you see the Ciryl Gane matchup, or do you feel like, okay, he could leapfrog Ciryl Gane and fight somebody else?
Yeah. Hey, if they want to kill Ciryl Gane's hype, that's what they do. They put Jailton Almeida in there. And what I was impressed with Almeida, his heavy side control. I don't know if you noticed that the way he also didn't really commit to the squeeze. He didn't burn his arms out in any of the submission attempts, and he was able to go all 5 rounds. So that heavyweight division is wide open. Now, we haven't spoken about the Sergey Pavlovich and Tom Aspinall, how that would play out, but he's right up there. Almeida, the heavyweight division's pretty thin, to be honest. I mean, who's he going to fight? At Marcin Tybura, they're a Romanov. He's already ascending to the top 5, top 3. Look at that. I see Volkov, Blades. Now, we were supposed to have Curtis Blades in there, and Derrick Lewis took this fight on short notice, and he did pretty darn well. I also think that Almeida may slice through Miocic if they made that fight as well. So, but John Jones, I believe that he's another level, though, that his compete level is high enough that he would beat Almeida. That's my professional opinion, but great matchups nonetheless. And look at those names. I don't see many young heavyweights on that list as all. It's the same names over and over again. Who's our young bright star?
Tom Aspinall.
Yeah, there you go. He might be it.
That's where you're in that mix, right? I mean, I think this creates a situation where that's good because it looks like the UFC is just holding off for Jones and Stipe. Like that's going to happen. Like seems like they're holding the cards for that. So then the interim's going to happen. I mean, why not have the 3 youngest guys? Like figure it out. Who's the most worthy of you? Jailton, Sergey, or Aspinall. Let's figure out right now. Seems good to me.
Yeah. Let's get into that matchup coming up this weekend. Actually, short notice interim title fight between Tom Aspinall and Sergey Pavlovich. Sergey Pavlovich has been murdering people in that octagon. And remember his debut? Was it his debut against AllStar Overeem? That fight was interesting because AllStar Overeem, not really a wrestler, right? But he's pretty proficient at MMA wrestling, and he went in there and was able to take him down. And and pound an elbow into his face and get the finish. I always look back at that. Will we ever see a Sergey Pavlovich in that position again? I don't know, but you'd have to clip him. I think nowadays, I think his defensive wrestling is much better, and you'd have to clip him and drop him to get him into a position like that. Can Tom Aspinall do that? Does he have the power to do it? Does he have the speed to do it? And let's get with you, Mike. What do you think? What do you think of the matchup this weekend? Just give us a little early taste of what you'll talk about later this week.
Sure. Oh my gosh. I mean, it's fantastic matchmaking. It's amazing how Miocic didn't take this fight. That's the thing that really stood out to me, though. You had John Jones walk, and now here in steps Pavlovich, who has been training. He was the replacement fighter in case anybody pulled out. And look what happened. They pulled out and they scrapped that whole matchup. And then now they have a brand new matchup. And Aspinall is basically coming off the couch, and he looks like he's in decent shape. I know heavyweights will be heavyweights, but the fleet of foot, how light Tom Aspinall is on his feet and his movement. I know he's coming off of that knee injury, and I believe he just beat Tybura, not very impressive strength of schedule. And Volkov, that was impressive. I'm leaning towards Aspinall here, but obviously there's a huge danger risk. How many punches can you take from Pavlovich before you fall down at this weight class? It's a recipe for disaster, but the stakes are high, and I believe that Aspinall is up for it. He's going to have to weather an early storm. That's obvious. And the other thing is Aspinall hasn't gone deep in fights either. So I'm going to be picking Aspinall in this matchup. Dangerous spot, though. And Pavlovich has the ability to hurt and knock out anybody. We saw against Curtis Blades. Blades wasn't able to land one takedown on him, right? He had a half-assed effort at a takedown, and it didn't work, and he backed off and decided, I'm gonna stand with Pavlovich instead of selling out for the wrestling and the grappling, which that would have been his path to victory. We saw Overeem, who basically drags his opponents to the mat. It almost looks like he football tackles them and then takes them to the mat. I think also looking back, I posted that video of Overeem disposing of Pavlovich against the fence with that ground and pound and how economical he was with those strikes. I think Aspinall can pull that off, but it's going to be a dangerous proposition. Especially just closing the distance on Pavlovich, because he's not going to just throw one strike. That's the thing about Pavlovich. He'll commit to 5, 6, 7 strikes, and there's a huge danger factor at heavyweight. It reminds me of who did Brock Lesnar submit? Heavyweight, heavy striker, Shane Carwin. Remember when Shane Carwin used to throw those heavy punches?
That first round was crazy, right?
Yeah, it was. That was nuts. And Pavlovich reminds me of Shane Carwin in a way with his striking. Very, very dangerous. If you get clipped by one of those punches, you're going out. So dangerous spot. But I'm leaning towards Aspinall. I believe that he's the more cerebral fighter. He's the more talented fighter, and I believe. Is he younger? I believe he might be younger in this spot too. Yeah. So Aspinall is going to be my pick.
Yeah. When you look at Pavlovich, right, he's going to make the fight extremely exciting, right? He's going to march forward. He's going to chase after the finish. He's going to throw bombs. And that's why we like him. That's why we love him, because he's had utilized that game plan for I don't even know how many fights now, and has gotten a knockout over everybody. And guys that are knockout artists, he's been knocking them out. And with Aspinall, he's, like you said, he's more fleet of foot. He's more athletic. His movement is better. So he would have to keep his distance. This could turn into a really boring heavyweight fight, to be honest with you, because Aspinall might not want to engage as much, but he'll do enough every round and land enough strikes and have, enough moments, right? But can he sustain that for 25 minutes? Because these are heavyweights, right? You could only move around so long until you get tired, man. Like I do like one round of pads and I'm tired already, right? So like imagine being in there where some Pavlovich is chasing after your head trying to kill you. J-Spec, what do you think is gonna happen?
Man, I'm stammering because I'm so excited for this. Like, this is a badass fight. I mean, sure, the fight that was supposed to be was more badass, but here we go. Just for a half step on the Stipe thing, hey, spoiler alert, Stipe has one last fight in him, and it ain't gonna be these boys. So that's why. Moving on. Pavlovich, man, he's my pick. Why? Because power, right? Like this is heavyweights, baby. And let's be honest. Sure, Aspinall is like freaky fast, absurdly fast, maybe fastest in the division. But Pavlovich is pretty fast for being a tank. Like he is a fast tank, bro. Like his hands is fast. He's pretty agile. He can move, he can pivot. Man, like don't get me wrong. Aspinall to me is probably the better pick. My fandom is getting inside of me or something. The last little bit, and I'm not being a negative Nancy here, but only one of these men have lost a fight because their body quit on them mid-match. And that is the final straw that pushes me over 51% onto the Pavlovich side. But I'm hoping for a banger, John. But I'm in my heart, I've already prepared myself for a slow cooker, like you said, because these guys don't really mix. If you think stylistically, I think you're onto something, man.
And Sergey, does he even kick? Have you ever seen him kick? Probably never. He's basically a boxer, right? With small gloves, marching forward and trying to take your hat off. And I'm very interested to see that stylistic matchup play out in the octagon for a title as well. You know what I mean? Because that could get into your head. You know, you're fighting for a title. You know, you're fighting for a belt. This allows you to make way more money and allows you to get the fight that you want, which is John Jones or Stipe or whatever comes next. But I don't think those will come next. I think they're gonna make a fight either Cyril Gahn or Jailton Almeida. I think the winner gets somebody like that next. I don't think they're gonna fight John Jones. John Jones is out with the torn pec, right? Like, how long does that take to heal? I'm guaranteeing you it's gonna take more than 6 months, right?
However long,
Mike, you know better.
I was gonna say, however long it's taking Mike, because it's the same thing. It's tendon off bone, so same.
Yeah. Well, what the challenge is, not only is he going to have to recover and then rehab, but we know John Jones, he's the type of fighter who takes his time. He wants to make sure that he's 100% before he steps back in there. He's not going to rush back, and he's getting up there in age. Granted, I would pick John Jones over just about anybody in the world right now, but the reality is that's a significant injury that he's recovering from, and that we saw he turned down the Chael Sonnen fight, right? Because Chael was going to step in initially when I think it was, who was it? Dan Henderson?
Yeah, you're right.
I think Dan Henderson dropped out, and then Chael offered to throw his hat into the ring. And man, I'm stumped on this one because you're at the mercy of John coming back to his whole self, and we could be a year and a half out from right now, and he hasn't competed yet. Look how long he sat on the sidelines building himself into a heavyweight. It wasn't, I know there were some contract negotiations that were taking place on the side, but he also had to build himself into that frame. And once he felt comfortable enough to do that, then he hopped in there. And now it also makes me think back to George St. Pierre when there were talks of him fighting Anderson Silva. Remember, George was hesitant to do that because he realized it was going to take him significant time to put on the muscle mass. And then how is his body going to respond to weighing 15 pounds more than he does? So a lot of variables here, but I'd like to see John get back there as soon as possible. In fact, I was heavily invested in John Jones when he was about to face Stipe Miocic this upcoming weekend. So I'm a little pissed off that fight got pulled from us, even though he was I believe minus 375 favorite. I still was heavily invested in him there. I thought this was his fight to dominate against Miocic. And now the other side of the coin is, we haven't talked about this, but what about Stipe Miocic, he'll be 42, 43 years old when John Jones recovers and gets in there. So the shelf life of, I know Randy Couture, the natural, he was able to pull it off and get back in there. But what's going to happen here? I'd like to hear your perspective on both of these fights, guys.
Yeah, I think this is a different era, so we can't compare Randy Couture to anybody that's fighting now, because if Randy Couture fought now as the natural, he would get demolished by every single heavyweight, 1 through 30. He would have a chance. I'm just gonna be real, and he was
it is
super old and slow, right, at the time. and he still beat guys, right? Because it's a different era, right? You just gotta separation. But yeah, it's an incredible feat that he accomplished. But John Jones, man, um, John Jones, like you said, he might take so long that Stipe just doesn't fight again. That's what's gonna happen. Probably that could be a possibility where Stipe's like, forget it, I'm done. I'm the greatest heavyweight of all time, and he is, right? He is. Like if you really think about it, but I don't know, man. It's very confusing. But anyways, make your guys' picks on the app for this weekend's fights, though. Pavlovich versus Tom Aspinall, and there's a bunch of other fights going down in MSG. Let's move on to the co-main event, right? We had Gabriel Bonfim,
Fight of the
15-0, like submissions after submissions after submissions, right? Just on a roll. And Dalby comes in and finishes him in the second round by knockout. Nobody expected that to happen. I think everybody put money on Gabriel. Mike, I think you put money on Gabriel, right? Let's talk about this.
Yeah, I did. I had I was invested in Gabriel Bonfim, and part of that was the heavy upside in the beginning of the fight. I saw that Bonfim comes out hot. Gabriel Nicolas Dalby, 38 years of age, in Brazil. I know he had won previously in Brazil. And you watch the fight unfold, and Gabriel Bonfim, he started off hot, and Dalby was right there ready to meet him in the middle of the octagon. They traded a bunch of strikes. Dalby was bloodied up. Then Bonfim ended up taking Dalby to the mat. He was heavy with his side control, tried to lock in a couple of submissions, won that first round dominantly. There were 2 10-9s and 1 10-8 round. So that was going all in Bonfim's favor. And then the second round started. Bonfim came out hot initially for the first minute or so. And then you saw him wilt under the bright lights in front of his home country. And you also saw his brother Ismail miss weight. So I'm sure that was a contributing factor in this as well. Just the morale of the entire team. And you saw this. Props to Nicolas Dalby. He went into enemy territory. You saw the knees against the fence start to really be a difference maker for Nicolas Dalby. And I hit the line on Gabriel Bonfim when he was minus 325. He ended up getting up to minus 650. So his odds basically double. And look what happened. Yeah, I got burned. I took a loss on that play. But you also have to understand that it was a situation where it's not like Bonfim got blown out of the water. He dominated the first round and then gassed himself out. And you knew 25, 26-year-old fighters, they haven't been tested. And that was an issue where the hype, somebody got fraud checked there, basically what took place. We hate to use that term, but that legitimately looked like it took place in the octagon. You saw a fighter who was undefeated, who had yet to really overcome adversity in the octagon, take on a grizzled veteran who was taking on a young prospect, and he got exposed, and that took place. So it was a teachable moment for me. I've been at this for a very, very, very long time, and I accept what took place, and also you have to commend Bonfim for his actions inside of the cage. Also, he went for it that first round. He attempted numerous submission attempts. He did get a 10-8 on one of the scorecards. So it was an interesting fight. But Dalby, we know, tough as nails, came out the other side. We saw Dalby, who had yet to be finished inside of the UFC, but then you think back, there was a no contest against a Jesse Ronson, who was a lightweight, basically, who was roided up in there against Dalby, and he ended up wobbling Dalby and then submitting him, and that went down as a no contest. So I did a lot of research for that fight. Thought I was in a good spot. Yes, took the loss there, but it was an interesting spot. Now, where does Dalby go from here? That's the question, because he is riding high. I say send him back into Brazil to take on another young comer to kind of stamp him out.
Yeah, without a doubt, man. Shout out to Dalby. Dalby did his thing, and every hype train gets derailed. That's what happens in MMA. You can't protect people for so long. You could only protect people for so long, right? And when the UFC signed these Bonfim brothers, they saw the undefeated records. They saw that they're finishers, but they knew they knew that eventually they're going to lose, and both brothers have lost in their last fight. We'll see what's the next steps for them, but I think that they'll bounce back, man. These guys are both young, and they're killers, man. They have killer instinct. They're going in there to finish fights, and they'll be with the UFC for a long time. When you fight like that, you could win and lose for the rest of your career, and eventually maybe you'll hit a point where you're like, okay, I'm ready for the next level. That's what happened to like Charles Oliveira, right? He was winning, losing, different weight classes, and then he figured it out, and they became champion, right? Stuff like that happens all the time. Now, J-Spec, I wanted to get your thoughts on this thing that I just came across. And pop it on the screen real quick. Armin Petrosian's management claims their fighter was seriously poisoned ahead of fight at UFC Sao Paulo. You know, I don't know if this was the first time this has happened in Brazil. I don't know if it's the first time this happened, like speculation of this, you know what I mean? Like somebody, but it's part of sports though, right? Every sport, soccer, football, there's always something going on with like, I was poisoned or like we got some bad food. J-Spec, what do you watch other sports? You've seen this happen.
Yeah, man. Okay, like we're talking about poison. That's like mafia hit level stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't know what Mr. Petrosian's in his free time outside of the UFC, but unless it's like on some like stuff we'll see on some Lifetime special or some Netflix special 20 years from now, like I think the guy's obviously a clean athlete. Like he's got to be busy training and shit for the UFC. I couldn't see him possibly doing anything that would warrant someone hitting like James Bond level espionage to poison you. How much just to interrupt your fight? Like it's a lot of effort for a very specific thing. Here's the thing. You've traveled internationally, Mike. I'm sure he probably has. I have. Yo, your body doesn't always accept the food, the water, even when like something's cooked in a different way over there. Like that shit, it's just in your stuff. Like you can get foreign bug when you go foreign places. I'm just not. I'm open to being open-minded and investigate, please. If there's something there, you know what I mean? Check. But on the other hand, I think life, guts, cutting weight, international food, I think I would put more money on that if this was a wager. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. His management coming out and claiming that he was poisoned, you got to have proof first, right? You got to have like the results of blood tests, right, Mike? Like you can take tests at the hospital to figure out like what exactly happened. And putting this claim out there, and Rodolfo Vieira, right? Like I don't think he would have any reason to try to poison his opponent, right? It's not like he's done this before. It's like he's fighting in Brazil. I kind of side with J-Spec on his speculations of like, yeah, you could have went to a foreign country. The water's not the same. The water that they cook with could actually get you sick, right? The water you drink, you know, like you said, the body is vulnerable. You're in a weight cut. And when you try to replenish yourself, you maybe replenish with the wrong things because you don't have the regular things that you're used to available. There's a lot of factors, right? But Mike, what do you think of this claim, though?
Yeah, this was one of the most cordial face-offs during the stare downs. Also, it seemed like there was no bad blood headed into this matchup. And I mean, you think about Petrosian, look at his skin color there too. He looks like he's in rough shape. Hopefully he's recovered. Anybody know if he's doing well since this went down? I mean, is he still in bad shape?
Apparently his blood sugar plummeted now. Yeah, I think he's better now, but that's why he looks like that.
Yeah, it looks like the same color as the wall. But I watched that back. And you know what? My heart goes out to Rodolfo Vieira also. You watch the way how deep that weight cut was and how much it affected him. I wasn't sure if he was even going to make it, to be honest. He stepped on the scale and looked like he was in really rough shape. And that's a fighter who initially came into the UFC as a light heavyweight. So I don't know how many more weight cuts Rodolfo Vieira has left in him. He's in his mid-30s. And man, by the way, I have to put this into the world. Let's manifest this. Chris Weidman versus Rodolfo Vieira. I have to see that fight. Sean Shelby, if you're watching, please book it because we need to see that fight. But I have no real interest in them rebooking Petrosian versus Rodolfo Vieira. I know that the lack of takedown defense on Petrosian side made me lick my chops as far as Rodolfo Vieira and his ability to land the takedown and find the back and lock in the choke. But man, tough cookies, as they say, for both of these fighters. Book Weidman versus Rodolfo Vieira, please.
Can I just throw out there that that fight falling out mid card was like literally this card in a microcosm. I mean, talk about just throwing on your spare tire and going as far as you can. I mean, this whole card was just riddled with craziness. I'm sure John's going to carry it on. I was just saying, like, this was just the cherry on top of a crazy pie of a crazy fight weekend.
All right, so moving on to the next notable, contender, I guess, or up and comer, Kyle Borjario.
Kyle Borjario.
Okay, Kyle Borjario. Okay, so
yeah,
go ahead.
The Kyle, like the way they pronounce it is just like there's no L and it's just Borjario. It just sounds like the Borjario.
Yeah. So Kyle Borjario, he goes in there and gets a decision over Abus Magomedov, who in his last fight took on Sean Strickland in a main event, and now he's on the main card against Kyle Borjario. Man, Abus, he's gotten some phenomenal opportunities, man. He's not at that level. Let's put it out there, right? He's got the opportunities, and in your mind as a fighter, you're at that level, but until you get checked, you don't know, right? And I'm pretty sure these back-to-back losses are gonna sit really bad with him, and he's gonna go back. J-Spec, what are you gonna say?
I am overloaded right now. Honestly, I don't know who his management is. I'm not taking any shots, but just in a comical fashion, you gotta really question this management, dude. Look at the chart of Abus's career. Okay, fights Dustin Stoltzfus against the win against the guy who's 0-3 and gets washed out. Then fights the champ, with the reigning champ now, right? Gets grenaded, and then gets booked for arguably like middleweight of the year 2023. Like, that's a rough rodeo. I'm just saying, like,
yeah, it is a rough rodeo, right? But I think, like, if they're gonna give you these names, it's an opportunity for you to, it's fighting. If you win, that puts you in a whole nother position, right? But he didn't. How good is Kyle, Mike? How good is he?
Yeah, I'll be honest, I think he's top 5 material in the division. He's such an intelligent fighter. And the other thing, the UFC needs to address on the stats, get his height right, because he's listed at 5'10" on UFC.com, and then under the stats page, and Abus is listed at 6'2". And when they squared off, I knew this going in that there was a discrepancy there, but when they squared off, Kaio was actually the taller fighter. The 5'10" fighter was taller than the 6'2" fighter. Really interesting in this day and age how that isn't correct. So the fight IQ of Borjario was impressive. The way he used his lateral movement in that first round and was switching stances and draining the cardio of Abus, very impressive. And then once he decided to pour it on, he had Abus drained, and Abus wasn't able to throw back any heavy strikes. The other thing was, as soon as that fight hit the mat, you saw that Borjario, he's the real deal. His control time, he has the ability to hit his opponents with strikes and not get hit. And that is, you'd want to talk about longevity in this sport. That's what leads to longevity in this sport. So I think the arrows pointed up for him, and I'm a believer. It's interesting though. I wonder who they've put him up against next, because I'll be honest, I received some DMs that stated that Borjario is not an exciting fighter, but he keeps winning, right? So what do you want to do? Do you want him to win, or do you want him to slug it out in firefights and potentially lose, and also lose his shelf life too as a fighter? Mm-hmm. So you can't win them all. And you walk that fine line. Like, I remember John Fitch in the UFC was a great talent, and he just kept winning and winning and winning, but he wasn't exciting. And the UFC never really gave him a title shot until he fought St. Pierre. And at that point, he couldn't overcome GSP, and not many people can. So in this spot though, I think I'm comfortable putting Borjario against any top fiver in the 185 pound division. I think that he's that talented, to be honest. What do you guys think?
Yeah, he's beaten some good names, man, so far in the UFC. You know what I mean? Like he's beaten uh Mikhail Olegalengeklek and Mahmoud Muradov, Armin Petrosian. Those are good names. Those are good
Oh,
names in the
solid names,
division,
dude.
right? He's beaten all
Especially,
of those guys.
yeah.
You know,
A couple things. I'm also gonna jump on there, Mike. I've stood with Kyle in real life. There's no way that brother's 5'10" because I'm 6 foot, and me and him were at least dead even. He might have been a little taller than me, actually. So
there you
yeah,
go.
he's no way 5'10".
All right, so with Kyle, right? Like you said, Mike, that's an interesting perspective of like, do you want him to be exciting and possibly lose the winning streak? Because right now he's 5-0 in the UFC, 2-0 from Contender Series, so basically 7-0 under the umbrella, right? That's a that's hard to do, man. Very hard to do to stay undefeated. You know what I mean? Like there's not many guys out there that stay undefeated. That's why they have those stats of like these fighters are 5-0, 6-0 in the UFC. Like they haven't lost yet. Like a Mohamed Makaev, right? Like someone like that just hasn't lost in the UFC yet. But with Kyle, I think that they should continue to build him, to be honest with you. I think they should give him fights where it's 50-50 because he's only 30 years old, right? If he gets to like 7-0, like around there, I think he'll be ready for that top 5 if he could get 2 more fights. Maybe fight somebody 10 to 15 and then, like build up because I think now he's ready to like test himself against the top 15 guys. And there's some good matchups for him. Like imagine him and Anthony Hernandez. That would be a great fight.
You
That would
said
be a
that.
great fight because Hernandez, he's actually ahead of Kyle, right? Hernandez has just been washing machining everybody that he's fought, right? Which is great. M is saying, I like Borjayo versus Hermanson. That's another good fight, right? I think I like Borjayo in that matchup, right? I think that he would be the favorite in that one. Something that I think people don't know, maybe they know, they don't know, but Kyle, he grappled Jailton Almeida and they lost. He lost by escape time. Like Jailton Almeida couldn't even submit him. And Jailton
That's
Almeida is a heavyweight, right?
just wild.
So that just shows you the ground game of Kyle. And I'm impressed by him, man. Let's see what the future lies for him. Let's move on to the next one. Everybody, make sure you guys go in the descriptions, download the AllStar app, and make your picks. Elves Brenner. What a monster Els Brenner is. J-Spec.
Bro, I love this guy. Everybody loves this guy. The fact that we were at the UFC X and he was just standing on the side and people didn't recognize him blew my mind. Obviously, until I took a picture with him and then there was an avalanche. But after that, I mean, the guy's awesome, bro. Like the fight wasn't even exactly going his way that great at first, but he just stick to what he does, stayed confident, and boom. I shared a picture on my timeline from source from whoever. Good credit to you. But it is just an ice cold shot of him standing like over the top. Homeboys just laid, face first, chicken winged out. It's just one of the most gangster pictures. It's like it's up there, with knockout pictures of all time. Els Brenner, bro, like love him. The only thing people had questions about him was like he might have overdyed his hair because like his hairline looked funny during the fight. But all jokes aside, like that's the only thing people got is like, what's going on with your hairline, bud? Other than that, he's a killer. I can't wait to see more of him. Like, keep serving this guy up. Like, please, like more of him, more Els Brenner. Let's go.
Yeah, he's a killer in the streets and a killer in the sheets. That's what they say, right? And what's crazy about him is
Nice
that
dude
he
too.
only has 3 knockout victories in his career, and 2 of them have been his last 2 fights, like in the UFC. Like he's decided, hey, I'm gonna go to the UFC and now become a knockout artist, right? After having 11 submissions on the regional scene, right? So it shows you that he can do both, right? And he's a guy that's willing to bang it out with you if that's necessary. He beat Guram, he beat Zubera, and now he beat a guy that kind of stepped in short notice. But to me, the Zubera fight and the Guram fight, those fights show you like what level he's at. And I think he's also a guy that needs a couple more fights, right, to get tested a little bit more. But he's a legit prospect. He's not a bomb fiend. Let's just say that, right? He's a
No.
legit prospect. He can have adversity and overcome it. Mike, are you impressed by Els Brenner? And
Yeah.
is he the real disciple of Charles Oliveira?
Oh my gosh, you brought up so many great points. Where do I start? As far as overcoming adversity, we saw it in the Kutateladze fight. That was very impressive. The Shootbox team down there, it's incredible how they're able to create a prototype, right? Charles Oliveira. And now there are 6, 7, 8 fighters, Daniel Santos, etc. They all mimic his style, and they find these kids. I mean, I'm sure they're groomed at a young age to have this mentality and this fight style, and they can just go, and they're like little Terminators. Really, that's what they are. And Elvis Brenner, you watch the fight footage, and he's an armbar specialist. He's a grappler. He's somebody who has all these submissions, and they're primarily armbar submissions. And now he's coming out and landing. He's grazing people with punches and knocking them out cold. So that spoke volumes to me. It's not like even hit the fighter directly on the chin. He hit him on the temple, on the side of the head, and grazed him. And Krzyzewski was totally out. And you saw the thing that struck me too was the first thing I noticed was Charles Oliveira hopping over the fence and consoling and just experiencing that every moment from a coaching perspective too. So he was really living vicariously through his students. There are folks like that in this fight game that I really I could see how they make great coaches. Another person who I'd love to see become a coach, Dominic Cruz. I've noticed listening to him in the broadcast booth, he makes such great points about, even before the Bonfim fight, he was making some great points about Nicolas Dalby, but he does it all the time, where he looks at both sides of every fight and not only looks at the keys to victory, but the keys for defeat for each fighter. And he's a realist too. So he doesn't believe the hype. And yeah, so from the Elvis Brenner, just the totality of his work, I'm definitely a fan. And the thing is, he isn't a world beater. He, against Kutateladze, was within seconds of being finished against the fence in the first round after he was dropped by Guram. Yet he fought back, and he had great corner work. I remember Oliveira was in there too. So big fan of that whole team. And I wish the Bonfim brothers would go to Shootbox.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
I don't know, but they might not be cut from that mold. You know, that I'm sure they have fighters who go to that gym who just don't cut it. You know, they have to. All right.
Oh
Go
yeah,
find another gym.
I guarantee you, there's like half of them. Half of them went there, tried to be Charles Oliveira, and guess what happened? You're just not that. You're not. You don't have the chin for that. You don't have you don't have that ability to be in the chaos and be hurt and overcome that. You don't. Some people don't have that. You know what I mean? It just happens. Some people are phenomenal talents, right? Knockout artists, technically phenomenal, right? Like they just know everything. But once they get punched in the mouth and they get hurt, they just become another person. You know, you hear it all the time. Gym heroes.
I was just want to shout out Shoot the Box. They've been making international world champions forever. Like, just legendary gym.
True. Yeah. What else more can you say about Els Brenner, except for like he's like must watch TV now? Like you have to see him fight. Like no matter what, he might not be the most popular. People probably still don't know his name. Well, his name's easy to remember. His name is Elves, right? Like it's like Elves. Like how could you not forget that name? I always forget everybody's name, but I can't forget Elves. Anyways, next fight. Oh man, this one I did not expect this one to go to a draw. Renat, I think Renat is like one of the best prospects rising up the ranks at welterweight, and I just can't believe that he went to a draw with Zaleski, right? A guy that's kind of on the downside of his career, right? He was just recently, I think he was just coming off a suspension from USADA, and like he's been like injury prone, and he's not fighting. But man, I was more impressed by Zaleski than I was by Renat, right? Renat had that first round, which was crazy. But what do you think of what happened, J Spec, with Renat and Zaleski?
Bro, so let's put this out there. I don't often like want draws or whatever, but I'm actually okay with this. Like, obviously, on paper, I didn't ever suspect it to go this way, but the people, all the great people that come through the space, it was like undecisive, man. Like, it was really split up, and not really like nobody was mad that it was a draw. I actually thought it was a split draw, not a majority draw. I didn't hear it so good at first, but I mean, you can take your draws however you want, but I think it's pretty reasonable if everybody who watched it thought it was competitive, wasn't a clear winner, two judges with the draw. I honestly, this is one of those fights that's like, no disrespect, fairly forgettable. Not, I don't even really know like what's the consequence of it really is. Like, you know what I mean? So I don't know. It's just kind of like, okay, cool, it happened.
Yeah, it sucks, man. It sucks to see a draw. The only reason it sucks is because no one gets paid their other half of the check. That's why it sucks, right? And
Yeah.
What happens to the other half of that check?
well, Dana White goes to the craps table or blackjack table and puts it on, he's played, right? Like, I don't know what he does with it, but like, I just saw the news that the UFC might be paying out $1 billion next year of worth of damages if they lose this case, and I'm just like, hell yeah. Like, how many billions of dollars have they made? You know what I mean? Like, I understand, like, they're the company and they the one invested, but fighters, they need to be compensated. That's a whole nother podcast. We'll move on from that. We might talk about that in the future. I don't know if the $1 billion gets paid out, because it's like, who do you give the more money to? Like, I don't know. Like, that's all confusing. But anyways, Renat, did he get fraud checked, Mike?
Not necessarily. I think Dos Santos, he brought his A game. We saw in his previous fight, I believe he was in Abu Dhabi, and ended up winning that fight as a significant underdog. And here, I mean, the capoeira kicks. I remember I was at Zaleski Dos Santos's fight against Lyman Good. I don't know if you remember that name. What the hell happened to Lyman Good? He was a solid fighter.
Yeah.
And it's been many years, but I know what he brings to the table, Dos Santos, and his takedown defense holds up in the second and third round, where most fighters, it wilts. The other thing is, I have to say this, Fakhretdinov, a lot of his early success that he has in fights, Kevin Lee, he knocked out Kevin Lee, but Kevin Lee was expecting Fakhretdinov to come in and wrestle, but he didn't. He ended up throwing hands, and his hands, it looks, I mean, I'm not a professional fighter, but it didn't look pretty. I'll say that. And he's throwing these winging wild hooks, and they're landing on the target. They're finding the target, almost like Vanderlei Silva, the way he would throw his punches and they'd land. And the first round ends. He's smile ear to ear, comes out so confident in the second round. And then you could see Zaleski Dos Santos just came alive throughout the fight. So I had no problem with the draw whatsoever. And I thought the judges got it right. I thought if there's going to be a draw, that is a draw right there. And props to Fakhretdinov for not succumbing to the finish, because it seemed like Zaleski was within 2 or 3 strikes. He was landing those hammer fists on Fakhretdinov's head. Fakhretdinov's head was starting to bounce off that canvas, but then he kind of regained his bearings and righted the ship. So draw it is.
There you go.
I just want to throw out there real quick. Zaleski 10-3, well, 10-3-1, but 10-3 in his UFC career. Like, that's pretty darn good, folks. Like, just in case y'all forgot, because I did.
And he's been fighting. Yeah, and he's been fighting the best, right? He's been fighting the best, right? So sometimes, he, like, even against the Muslim fight, and then I was actually at that fight against Li Jingliang, and that was just like, you're in China, you're against Li. Like, it's like the hype is just, the momentum was all on Li's side. Like, he just went in there and bulldozed him. But anyways, he has huge wins, man. He's a guy that just showed me in this fight that it's not over for him, right? He just beat Renat, or not beat him, but basically it's like a victory for him, right? If you're expected to lose. So shout out to him, man. And the last fighter that I wanted to talk about before we turn our attention to all the announcements that have been happening in the past week for the title fights is Vitor Petrino. Now, Vitor, before he made his UFC debut, I reached out to Vitor, right? I was like, Vitor, because he's teammates with Bufa. I think Marcus Bufa, who fights for the PFL, right? He's teammates with him. And Bufa, this man, I remember, like, him like a few years back. He didn't speak any English, and then this season of PFL, like I started interviewing him, and his English was like phenomenal. I was like, damn, man. So I was like, okay, let me reach out to his teammate Vitor. He's about to make his debut, and he's all like, no, I'm not comfortable with my English, but I've been still texting him back and forth with Vitor every fight, you know, saying, you ready now? He's like, nah, I'm not ready, but you know, thank you. And I'll be like, oh, okay, all the best, man. But whenever you're ready, we're gonna do the interview, because I want to talk to Vitor. I want to get into his head. I want to know about Vitor, man, because we don't really know much about him except for he's a phenomenal talent. He's built like he's on, you know, the USADA watch list, right? But he just knocks dudes dead, undefeated. And that check hook didn't even seem like it was thrown that heavy. It was just like think, and it was over, right? It's just J-Spec, Vitor. I know, Mike, you want to talk about it, but J-Spec, Vitor, let's get your perspective on him.
Buddy, thank you so much. You already know. Go back on our previous streams. I've been ringing the Vitor bell since his Dana White Contender Series fight. So this is my watch along party with the dude. Obviously, if you know me, I've been a Vitor Belfort fan my whole life. So when I seen this guy coming down the pipeline, I was already watching. And then he never disappoints, man. He's the 2.0. Brother is built head to toe. Like, I mean, just full athletic body. Like, no homo, all straight. So on the other side of it, the dude is a fighter. He does amazing things like finishes arm triangles from the mount. I'm never forgetting that, by the way. That's old school stuff. That doesn't really happen in the modern era. Like, Vitor is awesome, and I hope, just like we talked about a couple other fighters, that they keep making him appropriately so that all the fans everywhere really catch up and know what's up with him. Because, man, he's a young, special talent that could also be, like you guys pointed out, like Mike had that great analysis of his weight. This man's a clear 2-division fighter. Like, while he can still stay here, he can do whatever he wants. And then he has a whole nother career in a different weight class, to be honest, just waiting for him. So I hope him the best. I hope him health. And I hope to see him fight soon, man. People love Vitor Petrino. That's a fact.
26 years old, man. He's still super young, and it's like the perfect time. Mike, Vitor, man, like you mentioned the weight gain earlier in the show, and yeah, it just shows you like weight cutting is a thing that's always going to be part of the sport.
Yeah. I mean, we're in November, and the largest bet I made in the entire year was on Vitor Petrino headed into this fight against Bukauskas. And there were a number of variables that I took into consideration here, but namely, let's just talk about what we see, right? 26 years of age. When you have Daniel Cormier giving you compliments about your wrestling and you're known as a striker, I think that says something. And he was able to utilize that wrestling in the first round on Saturday. He's getting better and better. He has the prototypical build of a fighter that can go far in this division. He's built like a tank. He has a great chin. The only thing that he's lacking, I think, is the speed. He doesn't have the quickness that a lot of these fighters at the cream of the crop at light heavyweight have. So he still has some work. Can you teach quickness? That's debatable. But he has that fight ending power. And you know, sometimes when short punches land and you're able to knock somebody out, I think that speaks volumes. He can go to his wrestling as his plan B, and his cardio checks out. That's something that struck me also against Turkali. I know Turkali isn't a world beater, but Turkali was a grappler who was in advantageous positions, and you had Petrino reversing position and making all the right decisions at the right times on the mat. And he listens to his corner during the fights too. And he's communicating with Marcelo. That I'm sold on him. I think that the arrow is pointed up. The Botello fight, Botello on Contender Series, he's a legitimate prospect as well. So I don't want them to rush him too fast. One of the tweets I tweeted out, I think it was yesterday or this morning. Who do you want to see Petrino face next? And I got Jimmy Crude, I've got Tyson Pedro, a few others. But I'm down with the slow build. I don't think that they need to rush him. He does have room for growth, and he is raw. I mean, granted, you saw he has when he needs to, he can go to the wrestling. If you want him to strike, he can strike. And you also saw the jab this time out too. He was systematically landing that jab that was rocking Bukauskas. And I know it doesn't take much to rock Bukauskas, but he was in trouble early and often. And he had no semblance of a get up game. In previous fights, Bukauskas was able to get up, but he could not get up against Petrino. The top control was a factor here. So I'm sold on Petrino, but I don't think we're gonna be able to get great numbers from a betting perspective now that the the word's out that he is who he is and the arrow's phoned it up. But I will be investing him in other areas, whether it be sports cards and autographs and things of that nature. So I'll find an alternative way to invest in Vitor Petrino.
Yeah, very, very bright future for Vitor. I'm excited to see like how his career plays out because he's gonna get tested, and that's what I want to see. Him getting tested. And let me see what M has to say. M says Tapology says Zaleski is part of the same team as Vitor and Bufa too. Vitor versus Menafield.
That's
Ooh,
Whoa.
that is a nice.
Wow, I
That's
love
a
that.
nice
I love
matchup.
it. Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
Boom. Do it.
that's a beautiful beautiful matchup. Anyways, yeah, Vitor. Let's see what he can do.
I got one. I just real quick one. Since we give love, I gotta go. What the hell? My what the hell is to Mr. Dante Mays, man. I want to salute you for not only ruining one fight card, you ruined another one. This fight was boring, dude. It was rough, and then you hurt the goat in practice. No, I'm just kidding. Injuries happen. But all that being said, Dante Mays, good job. 2 cards, back-to-back weekends, no entertainment. Appreciate it, dude. Thanks.
All right, so if you guys aren't subscribed to the channel, make sure you subscribe to the channel. I actually do interviews with UFC fighters as well, so go check those out. I've been doing a lot of face-to-face as well. I feel like face-to-face is fun, man. It's much better than online. I'll do online whatever, but if I could get you face-to-face, I have one with Danielle Wolf, who is actually a featherweight, and she's saying that she's gonna fight at featherweight in the UFC. So all that talk about featherweight being gone, it's not,
I
because she's
said
still
that.
signed. She's signed, right? And she cannot make 135. She told me that. So we'll see what happens with that. Zach Reese, who's gonna fight Cody Brundage at UFC Austin. I sat down with him at a reggae bar on the beach, and yeah, he's very, very cool. And Lee Kai Win, that's an interesting one. You should watch that one if you watch any of them, because Lee Kai Win doesn't do many interviews, but I got him comfortable, and he's interesting because he's one of the only Chinese fighters that can speak English and express himself the way he wants to, right? So go peep those out. Anyways, let's get into these.
Real quick, John, you get extra credit on that one. I really, really enjoyed that interview. That the Lee Kai Wen, like, go check that out.
Appreciate that. All right, let's push this on here. All right, so Dana White comes out like he always does now, and does a special announcement. What is it? Announcing huge fights, and this one he announced 3 title fights. So the first one that they're putting together, or they put together, was Sean Strickland versus Dricus du Plessis. Now, I didn't think a lot of people expected this fight to be put together. I didn't think they would expect du Plessis to be getting a title shot, right? I thought they were going in many different directions with this, but I'm happy for du Plessis because he was originally supposed to have a title shot against Adesanya, right? Now he gets to fight Sean Strickland, and I'm actually interested in this matchup, man. I like du Plessis. Sean Strickland. We know his style, and he has great coaching, and I think we let his persona like overshadow his skills, but he's a champ for a reason, right? He went in there and effectively took out Adesanya, right, at his own game, basically. So du Plessis, a totally different animal, a guy that's gonna go all over the canvas with you, literally all over, right? He'll put you on the fence, put you on the road, whatever. He's gonna be everywhere. He's that South African fighting style. Like I asked them about it, him and his teammate, and they're just like, it's just our style, right? And I enjoy it. Mike, what do you think of this? Was this the fight that they should have made? Because it's almost like this is what we talked about, merit, right? This is actually a merited fight.
Yeah, and Cameron, as well as Drickus, they bring it every time out, and they leave no stone unturned. That what can you say? What can you say? I'm excited for the matchup. I kind of wish they had Adesanya against Drickus. I thought that might have been the title eliminator fight. But hey, if they want to put Drickus right in there right now, I'm down with it. I think that now that you saw the cardio against Whitaker, the way Drickus was able to push a pace, hurt Whitaker, go to the body and follow it up, and the killer instinct, the grappling. He's got it all. Granted, it isn't as pretty as some might like. The striking defense might be an issue, but I want to see it happen. I think that both fighters will be tested. It's impossible for them not to be tested. I mean, Sean Strickland is going to be right there. So we might get to see some of Sean Strickland's grappling in this matchup. I actually, believe it or not, I'm going to be picking Drickus du Plessis against Sean Strickland in this matchup. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I want to see the line. I haven't searched for it yet. I'd like to find out what it is. In fact, while you guys talk about the fight, I'll research it right now to see if they have released a betting line. But I think that Drickus has the ability here to reclaim that belt. That belt might be on a merry-go-round for the next little while, because Adesanya, I know he's been such an active champion. We talked about Volkanovski being an active champion, and I'm sure we'll talk about him in a few minutes too. But I think that Drickus is definitely alive here. He has so many tools too. He has the wrestling, he has the grappling, he has the jiu-jitsu, he has the striking, he has the pressure, he's willing
he has
to throw
that dog too. He has the dog.
And the self-belief too.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine how much confidence he has coming off of that fight against Whitaker when he was counted out. But people thought he was crazy. I remember watching the interview with you, John. He said to you that he wanted that matchup. He thought that was stylistically good for him. And people thought he was crazy, but he went out and did it. Yeah. He pulled it off in dramatic fashion. And he not only dramatic fashion, he put a stamp on that fight. Like, he left no doubt that he was the champion. And I thought, honestly, the way he conducted himself in the middle of the octagon across from Israel, I thought he did great. He was composed. He was measured. He used his words correctly. And it's tough I'm sure it's tough to do that after you've just finished someone inside the octagon. You have your next opponent storm you into the cage. But I'm going to search for these betting odds, and I like Drickus du Plessis.
If Drickus du Plessis is the underdog right now, I would jump on that immediately, because that's not going to stay the same, by the time even 2 weeks from now. But anyways, with Drickus, I see what the UFC is doing. Listen to what I'm saying right now, okay?
Listening.
The UFC is lining up Drickus du Plessis versus Sean Strickland at 297 in January, right? 298 is Volkanovski versus Topuria, right? 299 is Sean O'Malley versus Marlon Vera. Don't you see a pattern? Drickus du Plessis, Strickland winner, is going to fight Israel Adesanya at UFC 300. It's either UFC Adesanya or Khamzat Chimaev. One of those two will be fighting at UFC 300 for the title, right?
Can I share just briefly, just to put things in perspective? Khamzat Chimaev is a minus 230 betting favorite against Sean Strickland. So Sean Strickland's a 2-1 underdog if that match was made, but it's not. I'm still searching for the Drickus du Plessis odds.
But I think the UFC has this planned out. I think like the winner fights Adesanya at 300, because they have to make a huge event for 300, right? So you got Adesanya, you maybe even have Volk fight on 300, because I've talked to his coach, I talked to his team. That's what they want. They want him to fight soon and then fight at 300, and that could be like his last fight. It possibly could, because they've always talked about him walking away, making as much money as possible, fighting as often as possible, and walking away. But now that we saw that interview where he's like, man, I didn't have a fight. I was like mentally, I was like, frustrated, blah blah blah. So when I watched that, I'm like, man, how could you retire anytime soon if that's in your mind, right? So
Right.
we'll see. J-Spec, Volkanovski versus Topuria in February. Is Volkanovski coming back too soon from getting head kicked?
Yes. Unequivocally, yes. Like this, we've seen it, man. We've seen it before. Like right now, which is crazy to me because I think Alexander Volkanovski is a very talented fighter. I think he's a good tactician and has made solid choices throughout his career. These two series of events are the most wild and out of character. They seem like a fighter that matches your narrative, sir. John, it matches a fighter who is selling, and I'm not saying in a disrespectful way, selling the name he created. He's taking the big fights, cashing out. Like that's what it does seem like. Because you don't. Come on, man. I get the whole like you got to take chances. You got to take chances. But bro, you give yourself 8 days to go fight a guy 15 pounds bigger than you at the minimum. Like, I don't know. Like, and then now we got this. Like, it seems questionable. Seems really questionable. I hope him the best. I hope he wins. I really like him and his kick-assness. So the fan in me is going, hell yeah. The group commentator, if you will, in me is questioning if it's a good move. I don't like it. But then again, like I said, it matches more of what you're saying in a fighter that is pretty much chosen how many fights they know inside of them and just taking them, getting that money right now, while it's hot, while your name is, I'll just continue with it.
Pound for
It's
pound.
red hot. It's pound for pound. It's red hot. It's as sellable as it's ever going to be. You're getting your pay-per-view points, brother. Go for it. There you go.
Yeah. I think he'll be recovered by then. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like he's been continuously knocked out. And it's not like he's gotten into just major wars all the time. And then now he got knocked. It's a little different, right? I think he'll take the smart approach. But the thing is, like, if he would have won the lightweight title, we wouldn't be talking about that. We wouldn't be talking about like he took the chance, because this game is all about chances and opportunities, right? And you got to take those while you can. And Volkanovski's 35, about to turn 36, I think, which is not a good age for someone that's competing at the high. So Adesanya is the same age.
Like
you
you
know
said,
what
was the statistic you said the other week? Something about champions after 35 or at 35? There's some
not
crazy,
very good records.
not good odds. Yeah.
There's not very good records, right?
The quickness sometimes tends to go. Well, he's relied on his quickness and granted, the guy, he's one of my favorite fighters. I love watching him. I've backed him in just about every fight he's faced, except Makhachev those 2 times. Those were the only 2 times I didn't back him. And here, I honestly think he is coming back too soon. Topuria, he's another fighter who I remember backing as an underdog, believe it or not, in his UFC debut. And somehow, some way, Topuria fought at 135 pounds as a professional. Crazy. I can you imagine him trying to get down to 135? And Topuria hasn't taken the damage. He is an incredible grappler. I know people know him as a striker, but he's got a slick ground game. You watch the Bryce Mitchell fight, and there have been many others. And behind the scenes, I know on the
Ryan Hall fight,
Yeah. And I have a bad taste in my mouth here because I'm a Alex Volkanovski truther, and I think this is a very dangerous fight for Alex. I know he's going to be ready. I have no doubt he's going to be ready, and I just think that every fighter has a shelf life, and you have a very hungry prospect here who knows what he's capable of and he's got a very high level skill set. Topuria, he does. And the way he treated Emmett, he treated Emmett accordingly. He walked through him and took minimal risks, and he can be battle tested, Topuria. I think that who is it? Jai Herbert rocked Topuria. But the thing is, that
That
was
was
a
a lightweight though, right?
yes, but that was a teachable moment
Mhm.
for Topuria. He learned he was human, right? Sometimes fighters need to have that happen, and then the light goes on. Okay, I can't be messing around in certain regards. So I think that Topuria is live in this spot. I do. I actually think that he might spring the upset. But the thing that also brings me back to reality too is that I know how great Volkanovski is, and that he's well within his means of giving this kid a vet lesson too. So, but I'll be honest, I'm sure we'll get some nice odds on Topuria here, and I'm probably going to be playing Topuria.
Yeah, with all this, like people talking about he's coming back too soon, and that, they have strong arguments for that because in this game, you don't know until you come back if you came back too soon, right? Like you don't know. We could say this
Perfect.
all day.
There's
Yeah.
no test that you have to take besides, a neurological assessment. But
Yeah.
beyond that, you have to get into the octagon, you get punched in the head, and you
And
figure it out, right?
and veteran fighters that never got knocked out before, sometimes it's like a fucking slippery slope and like an instant fall off a cliff. There is no degradation in the chin. It's just over.
Yeah, and earlier this year, right, 2023, Volkanovski started off fighting for the lightweight title against Islam, right? Went 25 minutes with him, hard fight. He returned less than 5 months later and dismantled Yair Rodriguez. And a lot of people are saying the same thing you're saying right now about Topuria, about Yair Rodriguez. He's the biggest threat. He has the kicks and like all these things, right? We're listing off all the reasons why Yair was such a a threat, right? And then Volkanovski goes in there and just rolls over him, right? Basically, that's what happened. Topuria, I think Topuria is a different animal, and I feel like he is a stronger puncher, right? Not a
Yes.
kicker, but puncher, which is a different aspect of it. So
Yeah.
we're gonna see a high level boxing match. I think. I don't think it's gonna be too much grappling going on, but I think we're gonna see a high level boxing match, and the kicks are gonna make the difference. And Volkanovski is just so good with the kicks, right? I think he's so good with the kicks, and and mixing in the wrestling as well, right? Topuria, good. It's almost in some ways they kind of mirror each other, right? They kind of do mirror each
It's
other.
going to
Like
be a
we
great
don't,
fight.
yeah, it's gonna be I think this is the biggest fight. Topuria is not the biggest name, but it is the biggest fight in the division right now. And I think Volkanovski will be ready by February. I think he had surgery. He had an injury after the Makachev fight, and he rehabbed that, went into camp, and and beat Rodriguez. So we'll see. We'll see. You know what I mean? But age, like like quickness, those things are major factors, and we'll see in this fight if he is still who he is, right? Is he him? We'll find out in this
Right.
fight
The,
coming up.
the one little extra sprinkle on the fight is it's not a fight where it's like, oh well, Max already beat him, so like of course he's gonna beat him. Like there's no that in the story, which is nice.
Yeah, for sure. And the last announcement was UFC 299. And remember, 298 and 299, they're scheduled, but there's no location, right? So we don't know where this is gonna happen. But that's kind of weird to me, right? Why they would announce these matchups without a location. Are these matchups fully signed? Have every fighter signed a contract to fight each other? We've seen some shady practices by the UFC, right? And their announcements and their narratives. So I can't, from someone that has heard things about like the operations for promotions behind the scenes, it's hard for me to believe this 1,000%. Like these fights are actually going to happen. You know what I mean? Because we never know. But anyways, I'm pretty sure the UFC is going to do a good job. But anyways, Sean O'Malley defends his title against Marlon Vera, the guy that beat Sean O'Malley, TKO'd him.
Like it or
Is
not.
this what you expected, J-Spec? Is this what you wanted Sean O'Malley to do?
Absolutely. This is the thing. This is definitely the thing, man. Like here, I think we are at that point where we're seeing where the backside or the dual side of the sword with running with what the popular opinion is, by letting the internet influence of fandom of what the people are saying influence matchmaking. And there's no way like they're not, because immediately once Sean had the belt, the people were calling for, the people were pushing for it. Everywhere Sean goes, anybody like me or like John or anybody can, hey Sean, what about Cheeto? You know what I mean? Like, they ain't asking about nobody else. And by product of, hey, what's gonna sell? This is the fight that's gonna happen. And you know what? Good, because you know why? Cheeto is at the point, and I hate to say it, Cheeto's at that expiration point. He's either got to do something great so his value goes up and he can keep selling, or we move on and the young bloods keeps coming through, in which they are. So, man, I'm loving this fight. It gets them, and also I also like it for O'Malley, right? Like, your champion, you got this metaphorical monkey on your back. I know some people don't like that expression, but you got this metaphorical problem on your back. You got this person that already beat you. You already got people a built-in like thorn in your crown, or whatever. The shine to your belt is a little tarnished already. Hey, man, go out there, first title defense, clean up your record. Boo. It's very good. I think it's good on all sides, and it's gonna sell. People are gonna like it.
He's ranked number 6 in the division. There's Peter
Sean
Yan, Corey
Strickland was
Sandhagen,
7.
Cejudo, Marab. Yeah, Marab. I think Marab, of course, Marab should have been fighting next for the title, but him and his stance on like, oh, I don't want to fight my teammate. I think that rubbed the UFC really like in the wrong way, really, really bad. Like, they should have just kept that under wraps, man. They shouldn't even, if people asked them, they should just said, you know, if the price is right, what I mean, they should just kept it open, not like, I'm not gonna fight, like this is a game too. This is not, we call it a sport, but it's a game. You know what I mean? Like, you have to play the game. And some of
Yes.
these fighters are just not good at playing the game. Sean O'Malley is extremely good at playing the game. That's why
Thank
he's
you.
put himself in this position with, with what he's done. And he's probably getting paid more than the top 10%. You know what I mean? Like, he just knows what to do. And man, it sucks that Merritt is not part of it. Because if it was, Marab would be fighting for the title. Mike, what do you think of it?
Oh man. So I was on O'Malley in the first fight. I think I played him at like minus 300 almost against Marlon Chito Vera. And you saw in that fight, Sean O'Malley was getting off on his long strikes. And here's the thing. Rob, you mentioned the expiration date, etc., of Marlon Chito Vera, but there's only a year. These kids are only a year apart, believe it or not. It's wild. Sean O'Malley and Marlon Chito Vera. Chito Vera has been in the game for a long time, right? But somehow, some way, they're only a year apart in age difference. And Marlon Chito Vera, we know he has that dog in him. Granted, he was kind of exploited against or exposed against Corey Sandhagen. I believe that you saw the Dominic Cruz fight really laid the blueprint. We've seen the Rob Font fight. We've seen so many other fights where Vera, the longer the fight goes, he starts landing those leg kicks. He finds his way, and he's so damn tough, and he slips these punches to a point where they're not affecting him that much, and he can sling back that leg and compromise Sean O'Malley. And I think that's what's going to happen again. I think that I'm going to be playing the dog. I'm going to be playing the underdog here, Marlon Chito Vera. I think that he pulls this off. I think that he's going to piss off a lot of Sean O'Malley fans because Sean O'Malley got that slow build. Was it Chris Moitano? There's so many fighters that he fought. Yeah.
Chris Moutinho. Can
you imagine? Look at this. Can you imagine if Marab fought Chris Moutinho and if Song Yadong fought him? What, man? Or Pedro Munoz or Cejudo?
I'm actually for all of this. Like, how do we know for sure? You know what I mean? We got to make this happen. Like,
Ricky Simon. Chris Gutierrez, Saeed Nurmagomedov. Like, look at Sean O'Malley's resume. He's had the clearest path to a title I've ever seen in any sport. I think Brock Lesnar might have had a tougher spot because he had to fight Frank Mir, right, on the way there. But here, I think Sean O'Malley is going to meet some resistance against the number 6 ranked fighter. I thought O'Malley lost to Peter Yan. If you watch that fight back, I thought Peter Yan won that fight. And Cejudo should have been taking on O'Malley too. Cejudo could walk right in and beat O'Malley. I firmly believe that. He's that highly skilled. I think that Sanhagen could walk in and beat O'Malley within a heartbeat. He could step in there and get the job done. I think that Song Yadong could walk in and beat O'Malley like that, to be honest. And I don't think that's a hot take. I think that's realistic expectations. So I think that Cheeto's going to come in here and do some damage. I think that he's going to beat Sean O'Malley.
By the end of 2024, if O'Malley, let's say O'Malley beats Cheeto Vera, by the end of 2024, I could see O'Malley fighting Dominic Cruz for the title. To be honest, like, that could be a possibility. You know what I mean? Like,
I want that so bad.
Like you said, the clearing of the path to the title.
Promotion might want that too, though. That's sad.
Yeah, yeah, and you know, Dominic Cruz, he's a guy that will take the fight and he'll talk up the game too. You know what I mean? Like, I could see that, but the thing is, like, you know, he's pretty long in the tooth for someone like O'Malley, right? Like you said, speed. Like, his speed is gone, and he never really had the power. So the movement is still there, but without the speed, with the movement is not as effective, right? But that, I'm pretty sure O'Malley's looking at that and saying, "Hey, man, after I beat Cheeto, I'm gonna push for the narrative to fight Cruz because he's a legend, Hall of Famer. He's a like, he's gonna dig in, right? Like I said earlier, Sean O'Malley knows how to play the game.
Thank you,
the champ.
John, you're killing it, because exactly what you said. The promotion hates people, one, that don't sell, and two, the whole stifling, like you said, it killed. Like, fans really were upset about the concept of two guys refusing to fight each other at the top of the food chain. That don't fly, and that's why you got these guys in there.
Exactly, right? So M is saying Cruz, Munoz, Font, Edgar, Grant, O'Malley, Sands, Canetti, Pickett, and Keller. Great resume for Cheeto. He does have a great resume, man. If you stack his resume against, like, O'Malley, it's very hard to compete, right? Like, O'Malley does have the win against Peter Yan, but that's a controversial win. I don't know, like, where's Peter Yan? You know what I mean? Like, what's going on with him? Like, he's just kind of separated himself, because I don't think he's too happy about his last 2 fights, right? The decision losses that he's sustained where he thought he won those fights, you know. We'll see what happens with them. But yeah, I think I had to agree that Cheeto Vera is the favorite going into this fight, just because based off the last fight. Right?
Betting odds say that he's a massive underdog, to be honest.
Well, I'm putting money on Cheeto Vera then right now. Why not? You know what I mean? Why not put the early bet in right now for Cheeto Vera? Just put in like a, you know,
whatever,
$10, 15, $20. You know what I mean? Nothing too serious, but it's a good bet. It's like, did you look at the odds for Duplessis? Is he underdog?
Yeah, they weren't available. They have Volkanovski's a significant favorite, but they did not have the odds released for that bout yet. The Duplessis Strickland. Yeah, I can't wait for that one. Which is the first one? The first fight is going to be Duplessis against Strickland, then Volkanovski.
Yes.
And then the third is O'Malley, Cheeto.
Yes.
Wow. Oh man. Well, at least the calendar's full. My fridge is going to be full of all these spectacular matchups.
For sure. And also, you know, you got this incredible matchup for the vacant bantamweight title as well. You know, Maria. I told everybody earlier this year at the start, Maria Bueno Silva will be fighting for a title or something. You know what I mean? Like, she's that good. And look at her. She's fighting for the title, and she could be the champ.
Run the tape, he did.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I think she has a huge chance
too, right?
Yeah, they need to fix that. They need to fix that. They need to fix medication.
It was a Ritalin metabolite.
Yeah, they need to fix that, because I think a lot of people are taking that type of medication and they really do need it. You know what I mean? I don't know if people are taking Adderall to go train. Maybe they are. I don't know. But, as long as you don't have it in your system, I guess, during fight night, I think it
That
should be
was
fair.
that was the problem, is that her post fight showed metabolite of
Okay, then that's different.
whatever
It just always
ritalinic
reminds me of
acid.
do you guys remember the whole A-Rod thing where he was taking the gummy bears like during like the fourth inning of every game, and that
Yeah.
those gummy bears, there was like steroids in them. So by the time it would be like seventh, eighth, ninth inning, he would be like fully charged at the plate.
Wow.
Like there
Dude,
was, yeah,
well,
it
there's stories of
was part of the
NFL.
Balco, it's part of the Balco,
I gotta watch it.
I
the
was gonna
Barry
say this.
Bonds thing.
NFL guys have been coming out saying they're microdosing shrooms to
Yeah,
take the
yeah.
edge off of getting blasted. Like,
Yeah.
what?
Why not? You know what I mean? Like get drunk, like smoke crack. Lawrence Taylor did it. Why not? And he's a Hall of Famer, linebacker, played in Super Bowls and all that. And don't do none of that stuff. But this is fighting, it's a different game. But yeah, like the lineup that they have for the first couple of months, I would give it like a B. You know what I mean? It's not like, oh my God, yes, there's guys that are fighting that we enjoy watching fighting, but it's not like, I'm to be honest with you, I'm not like the biggest like I like watching Sean Strickland fight. It's, I could appreciate it, but it's not like, oh, he should be headlining a pay-per-view. You know what I mean? Like, do you think
I'll,
he could headline a pay-per-view?
I'll
He
contradict.
is.
Yeah, I mean, I'll contradict myself twice in one sentence. One, I think he can, but I'm looking forward to how these cards fill out. Like you said, just on like headliner alone, I think we're all just suffering from like not getting John Jones Stipe. Maybe I'm just venting my own feelings right now.
Yeah.
But anyways, how the rest of these cards fill out, and let's just throw this out there. We guys know we've been following along a long time, and these cards are subject to change. And like, it sounds good right now, but March is a whole lifetime away.
It is.
True.
It is, especially in this game of MMA, right? Just UFC. Like UFC is like its own little universe, right? If you don't even watch any of the other promotions at all, and you just watch the UFC, it's its own little universe, man. Like you could just week by week, if you really wanted to ingrain yourself and follow like what's going on, you can, right?
A
We
lot of
do,
fans are that way.
yeah, and we do, right? Because we're always talking about it, but anyways, let's shut it down, man. We got hour and a half, which is pretty good. We talked about all the title fights coming up, and Mike, let everybody know, what's popping off this week. Your shows and everything, where they could catch everything.
Sure. I'm flying out west in a couple of days, and I'll be putting out some individual matchup breakdowns for UFC 275 and others at my YouTube channel at Mike's MMA Picks. If you search for that, you'll find it. You could also follow me on Twitter at Mike's MMA Picks or Mike's MMA Picks. I appreciate both of you having me on the show tonight. It's been a pleasure to take a look back at UFC Sao Paulo and also UFC 295 and all of these breaking news matchups that have basically taken up the hours that we've had since they've broken. It's been amazing. I'm looking forward to it. It's got me pumped as a fan, and also it has my radar up from a betting perspective too, because I see 3 potential underdogs that I'll be likely making plays on. Thank you.
Yeah, yes, beautiful, man. And J-Spec, remind the people like the contest. There you go. You ready?
You know what it is, baby. On the AllStar app, join, play. You can make your own leagues, have your own private leagues with your friends and stuff. Please, I encourage it. But also, everyone's invited to mine. We're going to be playing this weekend on the X app. Follow me there. What we do, get in the space, make picks. I'm going to use a slightly different format, obviously, because we want everybody to build up their white belts all over again. Sorry about that. But we are playing. I think it's on point. Obviously, Tank wasn't there at UFC 1, so don't jump down my throat. But this is as far back in time as I could go, okay? So 30-year anniversary. Happy birthday, UFC. We're doing this. Tank Abbott, fully
On the
authenticated
Reebok shorts? Are those the Reebok shorts?
Yes, Reeboks. So there you go with the authentication down there with the tag on it over here. I can't reach it right now.
Okay.
Well, you know how it is. Tank Abbott, baby, coming at you. Come play
Yeah.
with us.
Go win. Go join the
Good.
spaces, chat with J-Spec and his people. Sicko will be there as well. Yeah, I'm actually gonna hop off this and interview Dan Hooker. talk to him about all the
Send
stuff
our
that
regards. He's fighting
Bobby
Bobby
Green.
Green,
Oh,
right?
man.
Yes.
Awesome. Love that.
But there's some issues with that. Like there's some like it was supposed to be the main event, but then they switched to the co-main event, and you would think Dan Hooker has main evented many times against the biggest names.
Yeah.
Why would you
Paul
not put him in the
Felder.
main event? Exactly, right?
Yeah.
Poirier.
While Bobby
like,
Green's hot too, seems weird.
Yeah, Bobby Green's like one of the hottest fighters right now, right? He derailed the hype train of Grant Dawson, right? In what 20 something seconds. It's just like those are the matchups we want to see, right? And that
Mhm.
should be the main event. But I'm gonna talk to Dan about it, see what he thinks, and there could be some stuff behind the scenes. We never know. But yeah, Dan's always a good chat. You guys know he's always a good chat. He always says the wildest things. But yeah, so we're gonna shut it down. We'll be back next week to break down NYC, MSG, UFC 295. Is it 295?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, 295. Everybody's gonna be watching. You know what I mean? I'm excited for these matchups. It might not be the most notable names, but man, there's gonna be some good violence going down. Yuri Prohaska versus Alex. Man, Alex Pereira can become a double division champ. I think the fastest out of anybody, out of anybody.
We're talking about a guy who got pipelined, one of the best, like Mike earlier. That's the guy.
Yeah. I think
That's the
Alex.
guy.
Yeah, I think Alex was probably the better. Like he had the most narrowest path to the title than anybody. But the thing is, like, you gotta respect these guys because they're taking the opportunities, right? There's a lot of guys that get the opportunities, they lose. They're taking the opportunities and they're winning. And they're winning at the biggest moments. Look at what is it? Sean O'Malley. We were just talking about him. He went into a title fight as the underdog against Aljamain Sterling. Nobody gave him really a chance, right? And he went in there and knocked out Aljamain. A lot of credit to his coach, man, because his coach had him ready for Aljo's tendencies, right? Of how he shoots in and like his switching stance. Yeah, I love the game, man. I love the game, learning about it. And yeah, shout out to them. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, J Spec, for joining. And if you're watching the replay, leave your comments in the comments section. Make sure you guys go in the descriptions and download the AllStar app and make picks on UFC fights and join J Spec's league. Mike is on there too. I'm on there. Find us. See you guys next week.